Did you know that analysts often spend up to 80% of their time preparing data rather than analyzing it? And that visualizing data can improve decision accuracy by helping people understand patterns and trends much faster than raw tables. In this session, learn how SAP Analytics Cloud and SAP Business Data Cloud work together to simplify data access and turn enterprise data into actionable insights faster. Welcome everyone to today's live expert session. We are thrilled to have you join us. I have the big pleasure of having Orla Cullen joining me. Orla, based in Ireland, is currently a product marketing manager and evangelist for data and analytics at SAP. Orla brings experience from previous roles at SAP and Vodafone Global and has a keen interest in innovative technologies such as machine learning and AI. And now, without further ado, over to you, Orla.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll just share my screen. Welcome, everybody. I'm delighted to be here yet again on these wonderful series that Tanya puts together. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we enjoy very much being here.
Orla?
Yeah.
You're not sharing full screen yet. Just
takes a second, yeah.
Now, perfect.
Excellent. Sorry. No problem. It takes a couple of seconds, but all good. Back on Zoom. So you're all very welcome here today. As Tanya mentioned, my name is Orla Cullen. I've been working in or on SAP in data and analytics for many, many years. I'm not going to say how many because I'll age myself a little bit. But very excitingly, the last couple of years, SAP have had a change in strategy where we're now not really focused specifically on products, but we really are looking at data and analytics across our portfolio and platform. So now although SAP Analytics Cloud is still very close to my heart, most of you know the quarterly updates I do from my blogs and my videos on YouTube. So I'm still very close to SAP Analytics Cloud, but we now talk about it really in context of how we manage data analytics across the platforms. And I think that's really important for what we're hearing from our customers, because we know you have multiple data coming from many, many different places. And without the ability to bring this together, we really can't get meaningful decisions from our data and use the best capabilities that we have within SAP Analytics Cloud. So usual disclaimer here, some of the things you will see today will be on our roadmap. So as we always say, some of this could be future looking. The dates that we're giving today are where we believe we are. These may be subject to change. So just to keep that in mind, we try to keep as close as possible to the quarters, but yeah, just be aware of that. So as you know, this series has been going on from quite a while now. I think the last one you had was with my colleague, KP Sauer. We work very closely together. We did a great session on DataSphere, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at SAP Analytics Cloud. But one of the things you will notice as we go through it is all of these products across SAP are coming closer together. KP and I work very closely together on how these two products work, and also we're working with other people such as Thomas Hammer on SAP HANA Cloud. So we're much more joined up thinking on all of these data analytics topics, but for now we'll get going and talk a little bit about data and decisions with Analytics Cloud within BDC. So let's talk just I'm going to just do a little bit of scene setting. I'm not going to spend too long on this. You've probably heard this from previous sessions, but looking at SAP's overall strategy and where SAP Business Data Cloud fits into it. So as you can see here, we still have our business technology platform, which is powerfully bringing new tools to developer advocates and our communities to build out new applications and solutions. And at the very heart of that is our business data cloud, where we're bringing these data together. Within that, we have all of those applications that we have across the SAP landscape, everything from finance to spend, to supply chain management, etc. Bringing all this information together, forming that foundation that's enabling us to bring the data together to maximize the insights that we're giving you, and also powering things like our dual agents and the agents across the portfolio. So as we know, business context is super important, and it's something I think SAP has had a strong foothold in for a long time. Most of you may have come from worlds where we've had ERP and BW, and one of the key selling points for why people liked BW was because when we brought it together, we did all the context of how the data comes together. So a good example of that is if you look at our procure to pay process. We understood the relationships between your purchase order, your purchase requisitions, your invoices, your goods receipts, your suppliers, and also your master data. And so when you were able to look at this information within BW, the joining of all that data on the cardinality, multiple invoices for single purchase orders was already done for you. And we had this wonderful layered scalable architecture that was available to be used by our customers. And that's why BW is still around and still extremely popular with our customers. And part of our strategy with BDC is the BW modernization. However, one of the things we did realize with BW and the star schemas and the cubes is it doesn't necessarily scale for AI, and AI is a big part of our world today, and even machine learning. So about 10 years ago, I started working on trying to use predictive algorithms with these data sets, and we had some struggles about how we can consume this. So what we're trying to do going forward is taking the best of both worlds. As SAP, we understand your data and your business data better than anybody. We understand exactly where you're coming from: finance, procurement, supply chain, etc. But we want to make that data available for the future to be used with machine learning and AI. So it's extremely important that we have that data, that we have the context, and then we can leverage the latest and greatest AI tools that are out there. So, we understand that our customers are asking about how they can actually use all of this. So the first thing is the easier access to SAP data. So how much work they need to do to prepare the data, join it together. Can we take some of that heavy lifting away from them? And what we're seeing with that is things like data products, data product studio, and some of the work that we're working through there, that making that SAP data, really ready to be used in analytics, but also for AI as well. Understanding the links between the different lines of businesses. So just because that we have a financial department, it doesn't mean the finance data isn't used across the entire business. So how do we make sure we're maintaining, the integrity of that across our organizations? Accelerating with AI. I think at the top of the hour, Tanya mentioned that, it was at 80% of the time that these analysts and data scientists spend is preparing the data to be used with AI and for machine learning. So if we can actually do some of the heavy lifting for you there, you are ready to go with a lot of these AI tools. The unified business view. So I think I touched on that very slightly there, which is saying across our different departments within an organization that they are having a single version of the truth. Faster time to insights. We don't want to spend all time looking about what's happened in the past. How do we start to understand what's happening in our business and take action? And also then finally simplifying that landscape. We have a lot of data moving in different places. It's 2026. As I've been saying to people, data really should sit where it sits, and we should be able to federate that across the landscape. And that's what we're trying to do with BDC. So what does that actually look like? So we have here on our overall view of our Business Data Cloud, we have our SAP applications, and this is where we're going to be feeding directly into these data products. So across the different packages, you'll probably see already the teams are working super hard. I think there's a couple of thousand data products available to be used now across everything from finance to supply chain to sales. So we are taking all of the data in our SAP applications and making those available to our customers as data products. However, we do know that not all of the data in your organization is coming from SAP. You may have other applications, you may have data lakes, you may have data coming from many different places. And these can also be brought in as harmonized data models or even as data products within the Business Data Cloud. And together, all of this data, produces our business data fabric. And the business data fabric is the key to everything we will look at going forward. It has all the context of the data we have under the hood. It's joining data from multiple places. And like I said, this is 2026. We shouldn't be moving data around the place. This is the single version of truth for all of our data across our organization, but rich in context and understanding the linkages between those. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into explaining how we manage lineages, how we understand the relationships between our data, and how we can use them to build new models, uncover new insights, and actually look at some of our new technologies. So that's the first step, is bringing everything together. So on the top of that, we have obviously the ability to build adaptive experiences. So we're still working very closely with the BTP platform for new applications. We also understand for our analytics, how we can make this available to our customers, but also not just pure analytics. From its inception, SAP Analytics Cloud has both planning and analytics together in one place. We used to talk about it about being BI, planning and predictive together. But I think at this stage, predictive is now so ingrained into the analytics and planning, we don't talk about it as a separate pillar. From the ground up, Our predictive and AI capabilities are absolutely infused into every portion of our SAP Analytics Cloud. But we'll talk a little bit about how we're using that for planning and simulations. So this is the fabric will be used to do a lot of this planning and analytics, and we'll go deeper into that in the next couple of slides. But we also know as well that our partners are getting involved. So one of the questions we often get asked from our partners is, now that we are moving to this where SAP is fully managing these data products, fully managing these intelligent applications, where do our partners fit into this? And one of the questions is they are bringing their domain expertise across industries and line of business, and they are building partner applications and also data products with their domain specific knowledge as well. And then finally, it's not just data and applications. We really want intelligent applications that we can use. And this is where our developer landscape feeds into this as well. So this just gives you an idea of the different areas and the different conceptual models that we have within the Business Data Cloud. But if we go a step deeper, what does that actually look like in terms of the different products? So I'm not going to go through everything here. There's a lot to go through. We've already heard from KP on DataSphere. He potentially even touched a little bit on the business warehouse modernization. And also we talk a little bit about how all of this is providing an AI foundation. But today what we're going to focus on is analytics and planning. And also we'll talk a little bit about some of the open ecosystem that we have with data coming from other sources. But really we're going to focus on the capabilities that we have around analytics and planning. So one of the things to mention as well is up until quite recently, obviously we have a lot of data coming from our SAP applications, but a number of partnerships have been made using the Business Data Cloud Connect, and those are with Databricks. So SAP Databricks bringing, really industry specific, things like Python, different notebooks that we know are industry standards, but also we know that our customers have different data lakes, be those Snowflake, Azure, or Google Big Cloud. And so basically from those, we're showing how we can actually bring all of that into BDC with our zero copy, which means when we're building these intelligent applications and our analytics and planning, we are bringing data together from across our organization with zero copy and everything ready to use with all these wonderful innovations. So that's just setting the scene just a little bit. With that, I want to go deeper into what we're providing with SAP Analytics Cloud and how it is super important and one of the pillars that we're using within SAP Business Data Cloud. So again, we just positioning where we sit. So as I mentioned before, this is where we have below the line here, the data products and harmonized data models, bringing together all of that data for the business data fabric, which is then made available to analytics and planning. And one of the key things to mention is, although we launched SAP Business Data Cloud in 2025, so just almost exactly a year ago, a couple of weeks after it, we actually have been working really closely internally with DataSphere. So DataSphere becoming that business layer, that semantic area to build our data together, and the DataSphere analytical models, which I'm sure KP went through during his session, becomes the foundation for what we're doing with SAP Analytics Cloud. And what's really important about that is the fact that we have, up until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we were doing quite a bit of modeling in Analytics Cloud. We were doing a lot of data connectivity. But by bringing these two worlds together, we've actually done the heavy lifting is being done in DataSphere, in the DataSphere analytical model, freeing up the Analytics Cloud team to really focus on world-class features and functions across, AI automation, assists. We have, our dual integration, as well as a lot of other planning and simulation capabilities as well. But by doing that and creating DataSphere with this business data fabric that brings all this data together, we really can focus on making sure the analytics and planning capabilities that we have in SAP Analytics Cloud are world class. So if we go a little bit deeper, what does that actually look like? So, we have two main areas we think about it. First of all, we have the business analytics and our enterprise planning. So for business analytics, we're talking about exploring our data, using dashboards and visualizations. A lot of that, sorry, that's moved on for me. There we go. So dashboards and visualizations, as well as all the artificial intelligence. And like I mentioned before, the artificial intelligence is now kind of bred into all the different artifacts that we do within business analytics. And then within enterprise planning, not sure why that keeps moving on. 1 second. There we go. Enterprise planning, this is where we start to look at our real-time data, the actuals that we're getting from S4HANA, and we're using advanced capabilities like simulation for things like Compass, and also using collaborative workflows. Sorry, I'm not sure why that keeps doing that. Yeah. So the collaborative workflows that we have between different people in our finance department to do a full end-to-end working of our planning, which is super important. So we don't talk about planning now with just the finance in mind. We actually also talk about it with the sorry, I don't know why that keeps doing that. Apologies. Okay. And we also talk about it in terms of what we're bringing together with predictive forecasting. So not just looking at planning in terms of what we know is going to happen or what we expect is going to happen, but also using our predictive workflows. So I'm going to come out of presenting mode for a second, if you don't mind, and then we'll move forward. Okay. The other thing I just wanted to touch upon is some of the main capabilities of how people consume analytics and planning. So on the top, we have here our stories. So the story is the key artifact that we use to build our dashboards and bring that together, largely for consumption, but is very interactive with a number of different AI capabilities that our users can use, such as things smart insights. We've got predictive forecasting. We have a number of different smart capabilities and AI assisted capabilities within those stories. We have data analyzer for people who really want to slice and dice data and understand what's going on, potentially building out new artifacts for others to consume. We have Just Ask, which we will see later become Joule, which will be the co-pilot that we're using across all of SAP. But Just Ask will be that functionality behind the scenes that help us ask natural language questions and get natural language responses. And then finally, MS Office integration. So I think we've had this for a long time at SAP, whether that's been advanced analysis for Office or any of those plugin tools that we've used across the different years. We know this is super important for all of our users. The Excel world is where they like to be, but we make sure that we have a single version of the truth. So we have our stories and our dashboards, but also the ability for some of our advanced users who prefer the Office integration to do that. But also even in the last year, we've expanded that. So it's not just Excel, we also have a plugin for PowerPoint. So now we can actually have beautiful visualizations that can be shared across our organization, which can be updated real time using the SAC backend. On top as well, we have the analytics catalog. This is a centralized portal for all the stories and artifacts that we have. We can manage our permissions, we can manage who has access, and we can also make it very easy for our users to discover new artifacts. And also mobile. We know this in today's world, we are all mobile. So the ability to have all this available in a mobile app where it is fully resized, so the experience when you consume it off a mobile app is there for you as well. As I would call it, the not so sexy part, the platform services, equally important, but maybe not the sexy part. So data connectivity, making sure, like I said, we have seamless integration now with DataSphere and DataSphere analytical model. We also have been doing a lot of work with connectivity to things like Snowflake and Google BigQuery, but also things like data preparation and data modeling. So it's really important that we have obviously the ability to bring data together and do any work we need to do on that. Content translation, we're a truly global world now. We need the ability to be able to translate content into many different languages. Lifecycle management, where we have predictive capabilities, maybe that's training models, retraining models, running planning workflows. Auditing and monitoring, make sure we're understanding what's happening, who's using what within the system. Scheduling and excuse me, and collaboration, extremely important. So we have things like My Metrics list, which we'll talk about, where we can see how our metrics are changing over time. Collaboration, again, as I mentioned, we are a true global world now. And so the ability to write comments on stories, on data points, and to collaborate with those comments across organizations is super important. Oh, excuse me. And also in terms of our more advanced users, we have the ability to do composite widgets. And we have also different components and APIs and SDKs for those to use as well. So I'm going to go back into full screen mode now that it's stopped jumping around on me. And here we go. Sorry about that. So next up, we're going to talk about kind of the journey that analytics has taken over the last couple of decades. When I first started working in data and analytics, one of the key things was how quickly we could get real-time data to our customers so they could analyze it, understanding what has happened in the past. Sorry, I don't know why this slide deck is doing that. I'm going to have to go back to this view. Okay. Now, Okay, there we go. So one of the things that we actually do look at today was a very historical looking what happened yesterday, what's happening right now, and how we can actually decide what's going forward. But one of the key things that we're seeing in our current market is looking ahead to see what potentially could happen and shaping how things should happen as well. So within SAC itself, we have a number of predictive capabilities. With our smart predict tool, where we can start to look into predictive forecasting, understanding what's coming in the next couple of quarters. One of the great things about the predictive planning is that it can still be overwritten by our users. So where we have information, for example, that was outside of maybe our business data fabric, we can start to input that. Now that we have the business data fabric, we might need to do that so much anymore, but it's just something that we can be aware of. But also one of the things that we're doing within SAP Analytics Cloud is not just reading data and consuming data, but actually we're creating data. And one of the key topics that we've been working on over the last couple of years is what we call seamless planning. And this is where we have real-time connectivity into for example, our SAP S/4HANA systems, where we're reading our actuals. We're using all of this amazing planning capability that we have in SAP Analytics Cloud, such as predictive forecasting and also, our data actions and data monitoring. And then using our tools within SAC, but also potentially even using tools within the wider business data cloud, like Databricks, or even some of the capabilities in Snowflakes, we can start to create new plans and new planning information, and then even create budgets. We can then write them directly back into our SAP S/4HANA system. So what we're seeing here is a fully closed loop. So we're seeing where the data is coming in real time and we can act upon it, but also we can use all of these native AI capabilities to generate new data and new budgets, which can be written real time back into SAP S/4HANA. So our managers within our organization can stay up to date with how much they've spent, what their budget is for the coming year. And that's just for the finance users. We're also looking at this across the planning landscape. So it's what we call our extended planning and analysis, where we're also looking at supply chain planning, we're looking at HR planning, and across the board, our workforce and how all of that is working as well. And by using Business Data Cloud as that layer, as we mentioned before, maybe KP touched upon it, we can start to actually read and write that data back again. So as you can see, we are working hand in glove with all of this data coming through and also creating new data in Analytics Cloud that we can share back. And then next up, we talk a little bit about our priorities for the coming year. Integration is key, as we talked about, working with our partners. So we want to be able to deeply work with SAP Business Data Cloud, as we mentioned before. So we have out-of-the-box intelligent applications. So where we're bringing data together, even just from an SAP standpoint, if we talk about spend intelligence, we're taking data from Ariba, we're taking from Concur, we're looking at Fieldglass, we're looking at S/4HANA. And because here at SAP, we understand the relationships between our data, we can actually bring those together in these out-of-the-box intelligent applications. We also have other worlds such as workforce planning, where we're taking data from SuccessFactors and also from SAP S/4HANA and bringing those together. And that's just the SAP world. We also will talk a little bit more about how we're bringing together data from other sources. So we have live data connectivity with third-party sources, as I just mentioned earlier, things like Google BigQuery, Snowflake, to name but a few. Composable analytics is becoming a bigger and bigger topic. And I talked a little bit earlier about some of our integration that we have with some of our Microsoft tools. So for example, PowerPoint, where we can create these widgets that can sit within these particular PowerPoint decks. They can also potentially be used in SharePoint. And going forward, we'll have them integrated into things like Outlook as well. But also these may not just be where we want them to be. They don't have to be within the Microsoft tools. We might even actually integrate them into our own native capabilities. We have things like SAP Start and a number of other platforms where we can start to bring those widgets in again and make them reusable across our landscape. So people can consume data where it makes sense for them. Planning. So I touched a little bit about seamless integration. So this is where we have our capabilities across BDC to enhance the planning, our planning capabilities, which I just talked about. Mobile, as I mentioned before, where more and more of our workflows are moving into the mobile domain. And we can see, as we said, our latest KPIs at our fingertips. And one of the topics we'll talk about a little bit later is one of our new capabilities that we delivered towards the end of 2025 into 2026, which is around the My Metrics alerting. So this is where we can actually receive alerts on our laptops or even on our mobile devices telling us exactly what we can do then as well. I touched a little bit on MS Office. Again, we talked about, PowerPoint, Outlook, and potentially SharePoint going forward. Also strengthening our core BI, so improving the overall user experience. And this is where we talk about our self-service analytics. So while we are providing dashboards and stories and intelligent applications, we still want the ability for our users to be able to self-serve and be able to build their own analytics or dive deeper into things and uncover insights by themselves. Enterprise scale, so we know obviously these are products that we'll use across our business, so we have to make sure that they're very high performing and scalable. So some of you may have seen previously that we have what we call the new story experience, which really makes sure that we have a really good experience for our users. And then, of course, AI. So not only do we have always a bit of machine learning and predictive capabilities in SAP Analytics Cloud, what you might have seen in the last couple of quarters is we have a lot of new AI assist features. So things like summarizing comments. We have things like looking at, summarizing different chart views. And also we have code generation as well that we have there. So quite a lot of new AI assist capabilities coming across the board. And for the end user, it's completely seamless. They go about their business as they were, but it's bringing them just new use cases as well. And we've one or two other new areas we want to talk about in terms of potentially, this AI assisted story generation, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. So next up, we're going to talk a little bit about some of our recent innovations that we have. So last year was a busy year, up until Q4. So actually Q1, we just had that released about 2 weeks ago. So we had a lot of amazing new features there, which I'll touch upon as well. But over the 12-month period, we had 167 new features and delivered. For those, we had, quite a lot in the area of store and reporting and planning, but also a lot again across, as you can see here, AI and planning, and also content management and cataloging, which are extremely important. For the story, I think one of the key things was the new experiences that we bring together, enabling things like blended tables, rank and sort, and also things like the My Metrics. And I'll go into, we have a little bit of a demo with My Metrics, which we will go to a little bit further down. One of the things was also bringing in the new kind of home screen and the Horizon theme. So we know most of our users now from a Business Data Cloud are starting working across a number of the applications within the data analytics portfolio. So bringing the Horizon theme brings just a consistent look and feel for all of our users. So whether they're in DataSphere or they're in HANA Cloud or they're in SAC, the experience for them will be the same. Seamless planning on live data, that was a big topic for last year and really underpins a lot of the core benefits coming with Business Data Cloud. Also scheduling, tasks, publications, that type of thing, making it super easy for people to consume planning information, maybe if they're not specifically tech savvy. Monitoring on batch jobs and making sure the execution is going well. So a lot of really good capabilities in the planning area. I mentioned the generative AI, so I thought we have the comment summary and translation. So the ability to translate comments into different languages and summarize them. So if a lot of people have been commenting on a story and you want to just get a quick feel for what is the sentiment, you can do that. Advanced formula generation. So this is within our planning capabilities where we're building these advanced formulas, how we can actually use natural language to generate formulas, but also use natural language to understand what's happening in a given piece of code. Chart summaries as well. So looking at a particular chart, this is a really powerful one within Microsoft PowerPoint. So if we have a business user who's in PowerPoint consuming some of our widgets and some of our charts, if they want to summarize what they're seeing, we can generate that using AI as well. Excuse me. Next up, we have our platform services. So again, the new homepage, I think, gives a great look and feel to our users. And also performance management. So really keeping an eye on, all the models, excuse me, sorry, all the different models and tables that we have across our platform and how we can manage those. And then finally, we know BW, I mentioned earlier at the top of the hour, is still a very important feature for us. So we still have the report-to-report interface, which was long since requested by our users, which we delivered towards the end of last year. So going a little bit deeper into some of those features here and what's coming towards the end of this year. So with the Joule and SAP Analytics Cloud and some of our code generation, these are in the beta releases for the end of Q4, but they will be made generally available early in 2026. Our story design, we're doing some new things to make our stories just really pop. So new color palettes, new chart types, a lot of stuff for people to consume. Story extensibility, that has gone from strength to strength. The ability to really have our stories maybe look exactly how we want for organizations with CSS enhancements, automatic scriptings, new APIs, chart variances, etc. So a lot of those advanced capabilities that we have for those really advanced intelligent applications, we've been delivering through the story extensibility framework. Data analyzer, that's a super important one. We know that people really want to be able to go in and slice and dice their data. And now we have new hyperlinks and the ability to access data analyzer through many different avenues. We talked a little bit about the horizon theme, the home screen. We also talked about scheduling. So again, scheduling, as I mentioned, we're getting closer and closer between SAP Analytics Cloud and DataSphere. And now we can actually schedule those stories based on our DataSphere Live connection, where we're using that business data fabric to fuel these stories. My metrics, I won't get into this, I have a little demo on that. I'll show you the demo and we can go into those in a bit more detail. The home screen enhancements. So this is one of the ones I'm going to try full screen mode again so it doesn't start jumping on me. Hopefully it will behave itself. Okay, so we talked about the home screen enhancements. So there actually is a lot happening across SAC between all the different menus we have. So what we wanted to do is bring everything onto the main screen to allow people to go straight to what they needed and find everything they had in one spot. So for example, we have our quick actions on the right-hand side. So we have things like creating a canvas. It knows what we've done previously in terms of the type of work that we do in SAC, and it has that as a result. We have our watch lists, which we'll go into in more detail. So straight away, if there's key KPIs I want to know about, they're displayed for me on the home screen, and I can see any variances that have happened over the last couple of weeks. We also have the ability to go straight to our learning platform. We have our interactive tutorials and our learning journeys, which we can go to straight from the homepage. And then finally, we have our Just Ask, where we can start to immediately ask questions of our data and our models and are returned with business insights directly in natural language as well. So it's a much better experience for our overall users, where everything's at their fingertips on the homepage and they can go straight to what they want to go to immediately without delay. Again, we mentioned the My Metrics. So this was something we called the watch list. Probably previously you may have heard it called this. So with the My Metrics, first of all, as you can see on the homepage, we had a list of all our metrics that we wanted to see. So we can have many different metrics lists across different areas. So we can have them for sales, we could have them for finance, we could have them from different areas. We can create them ourselves, or we can even share them with other users as well. And then as we see each and every one of these KPIs, we can see the variance over time, and we can actually dip in and see some of the insights available. But like I said, we're going to see a little demo on that in a little bit. So again, here we have actually the demo I mentioned. So here we're going to start to look at what's available in this tool here. I'll talk over, but we'll give you all these slides with the voiceover. So again, we talk about here on our home screen and how we're able to go directly in to see which of the different metrics that I'm interested in looking at. As you can see here, I can decide which ones are going to be displayed on the home page. I can decide maybe I've got a lot of them, so maybe I don't want all of them on the key page, but I can go through them there and add them to the list so I can see the ones that are most critical to me. Going into the My Metrics framework, we have 3 different panes, as you can see. On the left-hand side, we have a list of the metrics in the current metric list that we're looking at. So in this case, it's our critical metrics. In the middle, we have highlighted a specific metric on that list where we can drill into it. They're fully interactive, as you can see. And then on the right-hand side, we have our smart insights. So this is where we've automatically generated for you the key insights for that metric, as you can see here, and we can drill through each and every one of them to get further information. If we want to create some new insights, we can simply select a data point, ask for the smart insight, and it will bring that back to us again. So here we can see what's changed over time. We can see what's contributing to this particular metric. So it's expenses. So why is Washington the top state? We can understand a little bit more about that as well. Back in the left-hand panel, you can see we have the list of our metrics, so we can switch between them. We can rank them from A to Z, and we can also even search for them. And then also, if at any point in time we want to do something different, so for example, here we're seeing the differences as a percentage, we can change that to an absolute value, depending on what's most appropriate. But also in here as well, we can decide whether we want to add or remove different items from there. And also how it looks and feels, we can change that as well. So we mentioned earlier the ability to use the horizon themes. So we can have the light themes or the dark themes, depending on which one you prefer. And as you can see, once you select one of the themes, everything downstream changes, so it looks exactly the same as well. So this is one of the other things we can do by jumping directly into any given chart. So we're consuming a story here, as we can see. And what we can decide to do if we see something interesting while we're browsing is we can add that metrics to our list. And then going forward, that will be in one of our lists for us to see going forward. And we can decide which list we want to save it to. So again, here we have some of our existing my critical metrics, and we can give it a name. And also we can decide what are the different whether we want comparisons in there, whether we want to see how it's changing over time, and we can actually configure this particular metric to do exactly what we want it to do. So as you can see, there's many capabilities available in terms of the baseline. Also, we can see, sorry, excuse me, different suggestions for date periods that we might want to see, and we can configure that exactly the way we want it so that it looks and feels the way we want it to. And that's the whole point of my metrics, is that it looks the way we want it to look so that we can consume it nice and easily, as I said, within the My Metrics framework or directly from the homepage. And again here, as you can see, the chart that we've been given, this was obviously been created by one of our designers, but if for whatever reason we wanted to change the chart visualizations, we can actually go in as we would in design mode in our story. And as you can see here, we have all of the different measures that are available, but also we have some safeguards in place. So for example, if the designer who originally created this wanted to keep specific metrics in there, they can be locked in as well, just to avoid maybe if somebody is running the chart and consuming the data and maybe not coming back with the exact information. So that's just a really good example. So there's a lot actually happening within the My Metrics. So this was first released in Q4 2025. But what we're doing over time is adding new and more features and functionality into this framework for you to consume. And also where we see a particular metric has changed over time that we're particularly interested in, we can, of course, jump into that in a different tab or a new tab as well. So as you can see, a lot of features and functionality, really streamlining the experience for the end user so that they're able to really set up and consume data the best way they know how. Okay. New chart types as well. So obviously we've been getting requests. We get them through the customer influence portal about new chart types that they want to see. And one of them was the area chart and the planar chart. So the two of them have come in Q1 2026. If you want to see some demonstrations of those on YouTube as well, we have the top 5 video, which goes a little bit deeper into all of the different features and functions in these charts that were widely requested by our end users. Story versioning. So I think this is a really important one as well. So obviously we have stories that have been created, for example, by our designers, but at different times, maybe we want to actually change different pieces or different artifacts within the story. So with story versioning, we can have up to 10 different versions of the same story. And we can actually customize those to see the best view that we want. And as you can see here, you can actually have an overview of the different versions when they were changed and who they were changed by. So it gives you all that information and the ability to do some flexible work without maybe breaking something that was there before. So another important topic for us for 2025 and into 2026. Okay, if we take a closer look at planning, a lot happens. It always blows me away how much work that comes out of our planning colleagues and into our planning tools. So one of the key things was clean and replace for data file uploads. So we know data is coming from multiple sources, and in some cases we want to do the cleaning of those files, that is available to us. We also have in the advanced planning area, the compass. Compass was a hugely anticipated feature that was released last year. And this enables us to do this Monte Carlo simulation to see the outcomes in an uncertain market. Data actions going from strength to strength. Some of the key things that we're delivering this year is the ability for input controls, automatic dimension mapping for cross-model copy, to name but a few. Again, version management is key for planning. So the ability for, for able to delete private and public versions, but also the ability for undo and redo support, which we know was much anticipated and requested. In terms of data integration, as I mentioned before, we're working really closely across the data analytics portfolio. So working really closely with the live versions that we have available using DataSphere, but also the import connections with SAP HANA Cloud. Scheduling is also key. So obviously the introduction of the factory calendar at the end of last year was really important. And also, excuse me one second. Also, the Microsoft Office Excel add-in, particularly popular with our planners. We've added an array of new features, including things like restricted measures, also the support for the DataSphere structure query, as well as a number of other high-value adds that's been requested from our users over the last couple of years. Going a little further, the live versions and planning, that was a really important one. As I've mentioned here, we know data is coming from many different places across our ecosystem. So we now have the ability to consume data from DataSphere Live, and this gives us that closed loop functionality that I mentioned earlier. We can connect data directly from S4 and write that data back. But also we have now live SQL sources. So for the first one, for example, was Google BigQuery in Q4 2025, but in Q1 2026 we also added Snowflake to that. So now we have the live SQL ability for planning across a lot of these new data lakes without replication, enabling our users to get the latest information across their organization, whether that's SAP or non-SAP, and bring those into the live versions that we have for planning. Compass, this is one of my favorite ones. I love Compass. This is our Monte Carlo simulation. We've added new, more and more capabilities to this since we released it in early 2025. So things again like support for DataSphere models, the support for live versions and scenarios, and also the flexibility when setting up the different inputs and prompts, because there can be a lot of them, as you can see, across the different areas. So this is going from strength to strength, and one of the key features that we know our customers are using. Our Compass widget. So again, we talk about how we can actually bring this into different dashboards. So not only are you going into the actual Compass feature, but once we have an outcome of this Compass feature, we can actually start to embed that into our different capabilities as well. So with that, we're going to take an outlook into see what's happening in or coming in 2026. So there's a lot of new things coming our way. We already just had our first release in 2026. And we had a number of exciting features that have been announced. You might have had a look at that in our latest video that went live just the end of February. But we're just going to pick out one or two different areas that we're excited for. So we talked a little bit about what's coming in BDC, so our intelligent apps and data products. Data Product Studio, which is going to fuel all of this information to help our innovation in 2026. And then obviously the Gen AI is going to be a big topic for us, particularly with the introduction of Joule in Q2 of this year. BW modernization is also going to be a key topic. As we know, BW is still one of the main sources that we use within SAP Analytics Cloud, and also understanding our enterprise readiness, connection with DataSphere and the partner ecosystems, and then I will go deeper into some of the conversational and agentic workflows that we are planning in 2026. So we talk about infusing AI into everything that we do. This isn't new. This has been since its inception of SAP Analytics Cloud, something that we've been doing. So we have already these existing AI features, which were things like the Smart Insights, we have Smart Predict, we also had Smart Discovery. Those are all still available in the product and ready to use. We had Just Ask, which came, I think, towards the end of 2024, which will be basically getting a makeover in the coming years, where we'll see Joule be the main area where we will ask these questions. Behind the hood, we will still have all that Just Ask capabilities to ask natural language questions and get answers in charts and tables. But also with Joule going forward, we're going to be adding more and more capabilities into the Joule interface to enable us to do a lot more than what we were doing with Just Ask in the past. The AI assisted features, we touched a little bit on some of those. There was 2 or 3 of them that we came at the end of 2025, like the summarization of comments, the different chart summaries. But there's a lot more coming to help with our workforce planning, workflow planning, but also in the areas of maybe story generation and how we can start to come together with different information across the SAC landscape. So Joule will be the main carrier for this. And what we'll see is Joule getting smarter and smarter and helping us to show more of that context as we move forward. So what do we mean by that? So there's a couple of different ways that Joule is going to really change how we do things with SAC. The first one is going to be is things like tell me how. So understanding when we look at different things within a story, like how can I create a calculated measure? Show me how I can do this, and it will bring us information on how they can do that. Transactional. So for example, we want to generate scripts. So we saw that earlier with the advanced formula editor that we can now generate code, and we can use this to create different visibility, toggle things on and off, like little things behind radio buttons potentially, or different code that could be available there as well. So the end user doesn't need to know about the script, it just needs to know what it's trying to do. And using the capabilities behind the scenes, we can generate that code, which produces, for example, a table or potentially even a toggle that they can use. And then finally, things like our analytical insights. So similar to what maybe we've seen with Smart Insights before, but kind of giving us a lot more power behind that. So again, understanding the natural language, saying things like, what were the top 3 products in the last quarter? We don't have to be super specific, and giving those analytical insights back by looking at across all the models that we have within SAC. So with that here, we have just an example of what we're doing with Joule today. And just to show you a little bit how we can ask these questions, talk to me naturally, as it says. So we can use natural language processing. We can talk about sales. And even if we don't spell things correctly, it does kind of infer what we mean and is able to bring back information to us to understand that as well. And the good thing about Joule is it's not just going to be for our data analytics platform. It is used across SAP and all of our products from S4 to SuccessFactors. And here we can actually use the same type of information to bring that back together for our end user. So the experience is uniform. It'll be the same for everybody, and therefore it should be very easy for our users to bring that together. And also we can give it commands. So here you can see we just had a filter, and the filter was immediately applied to the story. But there's more and more different capabilities that we can do over the different interfaces in the coming months. Again, when we do actually ask for things, it does often give us prompts to tell us basically or based on what other users have done or based on what we have done, it can propose different things to us. And as you can see, we have the thumbs up and thumbs down at the end of each and every one of the different, replies that we get from Joule. And this basically lets us know, is Joule getting it right? Is it getting it wrong? And that information is then fed back in. So Joule can continue to get smarter to understand what it's doing correctly, and also areas of improvement. So again, as you can see, it's super easy to use. For those who probably have already used Just Ask, you probably will have understood how this works. But with Joule, we're bringing so much more than just the Just Ask functionality. And over time, we're going to see more and more how we can bring that in. And we'll talk a little bit about that in one of the next topics. So the next one, I think, and this has been one that we've been working on for some time, it's our story generation agent. So this is the ability for us to just generate a story by asking in business terms what we're looking for. So as I mentioned earlier, we have some of these composable analytics and these composite widgets, and these can all be held within our library and our catalog. So as a user, we can start to understand what kind of a story do we want to build. Who is first of all the profile of who wants to see it? Is it going to be a C-level executive or somebody who's really in the details? And also how we can bring in things like planning scenarios, planning versions, and different information as well. So the user can basically go in, explain what they're trying to do, give the type of user they want to the type of user they want to consume this, and using that, we can actually automatically generate stories for our end users. Very little coding, very little work to do, reusing a lot of the work that people have already done. So this is an exciting one for us for 2026, being able to really generate that agent that will help us build a story with very little work on our part. So we also have as well a number of other topics coming up with our stories, the ability to generate those stories. You can see this new little widget here that we can jump into that, and I will share this video with you as well after to go through what that actually looks like. But also as well, we can just have a quick view. So I think I'm running out of time here. But just it shows you exactly here where we can say what our role is. And again, if we don't spell it right, it then tends to understand what we're trying to do. We can actually use, again, the natural language prompt, the natural language input, and we can also optimize the prompt as well. So even if we put something in, it can read what we're doing, much like you would do with maybe some of our other AI tools in the marketplace as well. But it gives us some information of what's coming through the different areas. We can start to work through the data. We can also start to look at the different templates that are there and whether we want to create some additional appendages as well. So as you can see, it's super easy to use, and the agent is understanding what's happening, and each time it works, it's bringing together the data models, the different widgets, the different story areas, and is able to bring that together into a new story. So just moving it along here a little bit here. Once we have our final story, as you can see here, we can start to interact with it. We can actually make some changes. Again, we can see here some of the performance enhancements we've made with the lazy loading as we move through the different pages as well. So really quickly, we have a first story. That doesn't mean it's perfect. Maybe we want to make some changes to it. But as you can see, straight off the back, it explains what it's doing and where that information is coming from as well. So very powerful in the modern era when we want to create things quickly and understand what we're doing. Okay, so a bit of a look ahead. So as I mentioned earlier, we're continuing to work on this story and data analyzer, so how we consume the information, extensibility again, so where we want to do really make complex stories. Modeling, as you'll see, the modeling and data integration pieces, you will notice, will become very much hand in glove what we're doing in SAP DataSphere. And then flying with planning, we've got a number of big items coming this year that are coming from, obviously, our customer requests. So things like, things copy and paste across data actions, new APIs, to make planning a lot more seamless. And then the other thing just to mention, I mentioned that this particular webinar is a week late. That's because we were working over the last week with a number of our customers who, 1 year on from the launch of SAP Business Data Cloud, are really using Business Data Cloud and giving us real-world examples and best practices about how they're using it. So there will be a virtual event on the 24th of March. Irfan Khan will be there with a number of our customers talking about their experiences across how they're building the data fabric that is enabling AI. So as I said, that's what we were preparing last week. So that's why this session was moved forward. I think this is super important. We go through not just what we're doing here in Analytics Cloud, but across the Business Data Cloud portfolio. So I strongly suggest you register. It's a very compelling session where you're hearing not just from us at SAP, you're actually hearing from our leading customers on what they're looking at and what they're doing. And a lot of these are very technology focused businesses. We have people like Google, Vodafone, Ericsson, to name but a few, who will be telling their story about how they are working with the world of the fabric of data and how that is channeling for their AI. So very strongly recommend you attend that one. The rest of the thing, I just have some links in here to learn more about things like Business Data Cloud, data products, etc. I will share, or Tanya will share this deck with you when we finish. And with that, I'd like to take a second, maybe with 10 minutes left, to do some Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Orla, for your excellent presentation. So yes, we do have quite a few questions. Let me start with the first one. So how does the real-time SAC plan data budget back into S/4HANA work? How real-time is it?
So it's absolutely real time because it's going through SAP DataSphere. So we're taking data we're obviously replicating data real time using the replication flows into DataSphere, into the analytical model, which we're consuming in SAC. And then as we're consuming that information, it is actually written back via DataSphere directly into S4. So that can be scheduled. It's not necessarily something that you want to do real time. It can be done real time, but also can be scheduled to run periodically. So if you want it real time, absolutely, you can push it straight away back into S4HANA. But if you want to schedule it to run periodically, you can also do that as well.
Great, thank you. Perhaps you want to unshare?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So how does the write back work in the new world of BDC SAC?
So the write back is via the data sphere methodology. So we are creating these, I think I mentioned that we're creating these analytical models that we're using to consume the data, and then we're using the write back capabilities within DataSphere to do that. So SAC itself is leveraging the work that was already done to write back information from our business data fabric within DataSphere to write directly back into not just S/4HANA, it could be potentially other systems, but it is using that DataSphere methodology to do that. So as we were working off the DataSphere analytical model.
Great, thank you very much. Then we have a question about consolidation. So the BPC part, so when will that be consolidated into SAC, and especially the financial consolidation close? And the comment was also the customers are confused because they have to go for two solutions, SAC for planning and group reporting for consolidation. Any comments here?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question. So we are trying to bring those two worlds together. I don't have exact dates for you now, but ultimately what we're looking to do for group reporting is bring that under the umbrella of Business Data Cloud. So we're having our intelligent applications and all of those connectivities working directly there. I agree with you, it's not there today and it can be confusing, but the goal is to bring those two closer together. I don't have exact dates at the moment, but I can come back to you with some roadmap. But the plan is to consolidate these two together.
Great, thank you. The same question was more or less about when will, that was slide 16, when will all that be merged to SAC, planning, Gen AI, machine learning, platform services, data integration, the use of natural language. Do you have a date there? Or maybe
So
can we then...
some of the AI assisted features were released as beta in Q1 and will be available in Q2. The same with the dual integration. We have a large number of customers already in our beta and controlled releases as of Q4 2025 and Q1 2026, and those will be made generally available as of Q2 2026.
Perfect, thank you. Then yesterday was announced via SAP Influence Forum that the PowerPoint plugin will not be further developed. So no scripting and table support. So will we get it now? Get Outlook and other MS Office plugins?
I'll need to check that and come back to you. As far as I'm aware, there was still a focus on it for 2026, but let me double check. I know there was as people may have known, I think it was announced earlier this year that we are really doubling down on AI in SAP. And so potentially it's not that we're maybe moving away from what's happening with PowerPoint, but maybe the priorities of how this will be delivered might change. So just leave that one with me at the moment. I know there's quite a lot of work happening behind the scenes, but the goal is really to keep some of these capabilities alive, but potentially the user interface that we use going forward might be more dual focused and less focused on plugins potentially to PowerPoint. But I don't have exact information on that yet, but I will come back to you.
Great. So there's also another question about the widgets in PowerPoint and scripting. I guess that goes into the same line.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the widgets that we're creating with SAC, they will be made composable. So we will have the ability to integrate those into many different platforms. PowerPoint could potentially be one of those. So the way they're building them, they are kind of standalone pieces of analytics that can be embedded in other applications. That was one of the plans for PowerPoint. I'll double check that one about PowerPoint and come back to you. I wasn't aware that was made about the further development timeline. So I will double check that.
But I think there are quite a few questions on timeline. Really very looking forward to having all things included. The next one is something you showed earlier, a demo where Joule is able to snip up a dashboard from the scratch based on natural language query. And hopefully we can get that in action, see that in action soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think we showed a quick demo of what's available today. In terms of timeline, I was told 2026. It will be this year. The quarter itself, I think, I don't know for sure, but that is a big topic for us for this year. It's a big push from the top. As you heard, Mohammed he was pushing big time that we are working more with these AI and the agents. So that is a popular topic for us. So what you saw today was in fact a demo from our development tenant. So it's close. Okay, it's not that it's science fiction. So it's getting there in terms of actual dates. Yeah, I don't think it's in the roadmap just yet, but definitely plan for 2026. So we're early in the year. I know it's into March, but the priorities are clear of what we want to deliver. In terms of actual absolute timelines, we're still working on those. So one thing I would say to you is keep your eye on the roadmap explorer that we have, because our PMs still add in the latest and greatest features into there. So I know they've just finished getting everything done for Q1. And they will be creating new ones coming through then for Q2 and beyond, as and when the priorities are agreed.
Right, thank you so much. And now, so far, that's the last question. How much of the AI functions will work with a live connection to BW for HANA?
That's a good question. Basically, a lot of what we're building will be available to the live connectivity to SAP DataSphere, number one, and potentially BW after. But one of the things just to mention as we talk about Business Data Cloud and the wider use across data and analytics is that we are working on BW modernization with DataSphere. So the ability to consume BW content through the DataSphere analytical model. So this will be the vehicle going forward for a lot of that live connectivity. So by working on the BW modernization, where we have things like the data product generation into DataSphere, and then using the live DataSphere model to consume that information. So it probably seems like an additional step, but ultimately everything is focused on the DataSphere analytical model, getting the BW data in there, and then making all of that capabilities available for AI Assist, for Joule, for example, for Compass, all through that DataSphere analytical model. And that will be the vehicle going forward. And as maybe I think KP might have touched more on in his session, how the BW modernization with DataSphere is happening. And basically this is the strategy that we have across the board.
Thank you so much. And we are actually over the time. Now, I would like to invite everyone also watching the video afterwards. If you have any questions, reach out to us, post them in the comments area underneath this video, and we will come back to you. And with this, Orla, big thanks to you for the excellent presentation and for making the time. And also a big thanks to all attendees for joining. I hope you got a lot of value from the session, and I wish, there's one question very quick. Can we have the data product generator or on-premise BW, not only PCE?
At the moment, I think it's only planned for PCE, but I'll double check that and come back to you as well. At the moment, the plan is just for PCE.
And we have a session planned on Product Studio, Data Product Studio planned for end of March. Join us there. Thank you for joining. Have a great day. Have a great evening, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.